My 8-year-old mute granddaughter pointed at my tea and said, "Don't drink it." I froze. She'd never spoken before. Then she looked me dead in the eye and kept going. My stomach dropped. I didn't panic. I did this. 7 days later, her mother went completely white because I wasn't the sweet, lonely grandma she thought she was drugging. Let me back up. My name is Patricia Morgan. I live in a quiet suburb outside Columbus, Ohio, one of those neighborhoods where everyone waves, nobody actually knows anyone's last name, and the HOA will fine you for breathing too aggressively. I'm a widow, a homeowner, and, according to my daughter-in-law, apparently at that age. You know the tone. My son, Brian, is 34 and still thinks adulting is something you do between streaming subscriptions. He's a good man, soft around the edges, the kind of guy who'd apologize to a chair after bumping into it. His wife, Melissa, is also a kind of chair, the kind with spikes. Melissa is what I call Pinterest polite. Everything is love, sweetie. I just want what's best. And somehow you end up signing something you didn't read while she smiles like a Disney villain in yoga pants. They'd been married 6 years. 6 years of my son slowly shrinking in family photos. And then there was Nora, my granddaughter, 8 years old, big brown eyes, quiet as snowfall. The doctors had labeled her nonverbal early on. Developmental delays, anxiety, selective mutism, a whole list of words that basically meant she doesn't talk. And in our world, that was just Nora. Until that tea. It started with a vacation. Brian called me on a Tuesday night, voice bright in that overly cheerful way people get right before they ask for a favor. "Mom," he said, "Melissa and I found this deal for a resort in Florida. Like, ridiculous deal. We really need it. Just a week. Could you stay with Nora?" "Stay with her," I repeated, because apparently that needed clarification. "You mean, in your house, overnight. Me, the grandma. Just 7 days," he said quickly. "She'll be fine. She's used to you. Melissa already planned everything out." Of course she did. If Melissa planned a sneeze, she'd email you a color-coded schedule and ask you to sign a waiver. "Patricia," Melissa's voice slid into the call like perfume. "It'll be easy. I made a binder." "A binder?" "Of course." "Everything is labeled," she continued. "Meals, routines, therapies, emergency numbers, and I left you my special herbal tea. It's calming. It'll help you sleep." The way she said calming made my skin itch. But I smiled anyway, because that's what you do when you're dealing with someone who thinks manners are a weapon. "Sounds lovely," I said. "Perfect," Melissa chirped. We leave Saturday morning. Saturday came. They pulled out of the driveway with suitcases and sunglasses like they were starring in a commercial. Melissa hugged Nora with dramatic intensity, like she was leaving for war. "Be good," she whispered to her, a little too close to her ear. Then she kissed her forehead and turned to me. "Patricia, don't forget the tea," she said, pressing a glass jar into my hands like it was sacred. "1 cup every night." The jar was filled with dried herbs, chamomile, lavender, something citrusy. It smelled fine. That's what made it worse. Brian hugged me, kissed my cheek. "Thanks, Mom. Seriously." And then they were gone. The house felt too quiet. Nora stood in the entryway, small and still, watching the taillights disappear. I crouched down. "Hey, Peanut," I said softly. "It's just us for a week, okay? We're going to be fine." Nora didn't respond. She rarely did, but she lifted her eyes to mine, sharp, alert, like she was holding a secret so heavy it bent her spine. I chalked it up to nerves. I shouldn't have. That first day was normal. Breakfast, cartoons, a little walk around the block. Nora stayed close to me like a shadow. Melissa texted constantly. Don't forget speech exercises. Limit sugar. Tea tonight. She likes her bath warm, not hot. And your tea. Yes, Melissa. My tea. Thank you for the reminder, Captain Control Freak. That night, after Nora's bath, I warmed up the kettle. The kitchen light hummed. The house creaked the way houses do when they're old and full of memories. I set 2 mugs on the counter, one for me, one for, well, mostly me. Nora never drank tea. I spooned the herbs into the strainer and poured the hot water. Steam curled up. It smelled like every self-care post on Instagram. Nora wandered in quietly, pajama sleeves pulled over her hands. She watched me with that same intense focus. I lifted the mug toward my lips. I took one small sip, barely enough to taste it. And Nora moved, fast. She reached up, small hand grabbing my wrist. Her grip was shockingly strong. Then she pointed at the tea, and she spoke. Clear, calm, like she'd been doing it her whole life. Don't drink it. I froze. Every muscle, every thought, everything. Because Nora didn't speak. Nora didn't whisper. She didn't hum. She didn't even make noise when she cried. And now she was looking at my mug like it was a loaded gun. What did you say? I breathed. Nora's eyes didn't flicker. Don't drink it, she repeated. She put something in it. She? My mouth felt dry. Melissa? Nora nodded once. My heart did something unpleasant in my chest, like it tried to crawl out through my throat. Sweetheart, I said slowly. How are you? I can talk, she said, like she was stating her shoe size. I just don't. Not when she's listening. The kettle clicked off behind us, a cheerful little sound that did not match the moment. I set the mug down carefully, like it might explode. Nora, I whispered. Why didn't you tell me? Her face tightened. Her voice dropped. She said if I told, she'd send me back. My stomach turned. Back where? Nora swallowed. Back to foster care. Back to strangers. She said she'd call my old caseworker and tell them I'm broken, and they'd take me away again. I felt heat rise behind my eyes. Because Nora wasn't Melissa's biological child. Nora had come into their lives through foster to adopt. A complicated story, a hard beginning, and Melissa was using that trauma like a leash. I took a breath. One of those deep breaths you take when you're trying not to scream. What did she put in the tea? I asked, voice steady. Nora shrugged, but there was something sickly practiced in it, like she'd been forced to learn how to answer without saying too much. White powder, she said. She crushed it. I saw. She said it'll make you sleep. Then you'll get confused. Then you'll sign. Sign what? I asked. Nora stared at me, and for the first time I saw fear crack through her calm. Your house, she whispered. My blood went cold. Oh, so that was the game. Not calming tea, not helping Grandma sleep. This was a slow, polite robbery, and my daughter-in-law had apparently decided I was next. I should tell you I yelled, that I grabbed my phone and called Brian, demanded answers, threatened lawsuits, made dramatic speeches. I didn't, because panic makes you sloppy. And Melissa thrived on sloppy. So I did the one thing she would never expect from Patricia at that age. I smiled. I leaned down, kissed Nora's forehead, and said softly, Okay, thank you for telling me. Then I picked up my mug, and I walked to the sink. I dumped the tea down the drain like I was casually watering the pipes. Nora's shoulders loosened, just a little. Then I rinsed the mug. Calm. Normal. Grandma things. And when I turned back around, I kept my voice gentle. Sweetheart, I said, We're going to play a game this week, a grown-up game. Nora blinked. A game? Yes, I said. It's called Let Melissa Think She's Winning. Nora stared at me. Then, in the tiniest flicker of a moment, she almost smiled. Almost. That was enough. Step 1. I needed proof. Because in America, you can walk into a police station and say, "My daughter-in-law is drugging me." And they'll look at you like you just accused her of stealing your garden gnomes. Step 2. I needed Nora safe. Because if Melissa had threatened her into silence once, she'd do worse if she felt cornered. So I moved carefully, quietly, like someone setting a trap for a fox. I cleaned up the kitchen, tucked Nora into bed, and waited until the house was still. Then I opened Melissa's precious binder. The thing was thick enough to stop a bullet. Inside were schedules, meal plans, and a page titled Mom's Wellness Routine. Because of course, that page had one item circled in pink, herbal tea. Nightly, no exceptions. No exceptions. I took a photo of the page with my phone. Then I went to the pantry. Melissa had lined up supplies like a doomsday prepper, except instead of canned beans, it was gluten-free crackers and immune-boosting gummies. The tea jar sat front and center. I didn't touch it with my bare hands. Yes, I know that sounds dramatic. But when your daughter-in-law might be poisoning you, you develop a sudden respect for fingerprints. I grabbed a clean mason jar, poured a spoonful of the tea blend into it, sealed it, and labeled it with a Sharpie. Tea sample, Saturday. Then I took another photo. Then I texted Melissa, because I needed her to keep talking. Me. Nora's asleep. I'm having your tea now. So relaxing. Within 30 seconds. Melissa. Good. Make sure you drink the whole cup. Night, Patricia. Oh, Melissa. Thank you for putting your greed in writing. I slept poorly that night. Not because of sedatives, but because my brain wouldn't stop sprinting. By morning, I had a plan. First, the medical piece. I called my primary care office as soon as they opened. "Dr. Miller's nurse," the voice answered. "Hi," I said, keeping my tone light. "This is Patricia Morgan. I need to come in today. Something urgent." There was a pause. "Are you having chest pain?" "No," I said. "I'm being potentially poisoned." Silence. Then, "Okay. Yes. Let's get you in." Bless that nurse. She didn't laugh. She didn't ask if I was watching too much true crime. She just moved. 2 hours later, I was sitting in a clinic room while Dr. Susan Miller, a sharp woman in her 50s who did not tolerate nonsense, looked at me over her glasses. "You think someone is drugging you?" she said. "I think someone is putting something in my tea," I replied. Dr. Miller's eyebrow lifted. "And you didn't drink it?" "Not more than a single sip before Nora stopped me," I said. "But I want to know what it is. And I want it documented." Now here's the thing about doctors. Some will brush you off. Some will blame stress. Some will tell you to meditate. "Dr. Miller?" She leaned forward. "Do you have the tea?" she asked. "I have a sample," I said. "Good," she said briskly. "We're doing labs, toxicology screen, and if anything shows up, I'm making a report." My throat tightened. "Report to who?" I asked. "Adult Protective Services," she said plainly. "This is elder abuse if it's real, and if it's not real, we'll still have your labs and your peace of mind." I nodded. "Do it." They drew blood, took urine. The glamorous side of being a target, truly. On the way home, I stopped at a pharmacy and bought a small lockbox. Nora thought it was for treasure. In a way, it was. Back home, Nora sat at the kitchen table coloring while I called the second person on my list, an attorney. Not a "my friend's cousin does legal stuff" attorney, a real one. James Whitman's office was downtown. His receptionist answered in that polished voice people get when they bill by the hour. "Whitman and Associates." "My name is Patricia Morgan," I said. "I need to speak to Mr. Whitman. It's about potential elder exploitation." There was a shift in tone immediately. "One moment, ma'am." James came on the line himself. "Ms. Morgan," he said calmly, "tell me what's going on." So I did. I told him about Melissa's tea, Nora's warning, the threat about foster care, the talk of signing over my house. And then I got quiet. "I need this to be real," I said. "I need it to hold up. Because if I accuse her and I'm wrong, I'm done. My son will never forgive me." James didn't rush me. He didn't speak down to me. He just listened. Then he said, "If you're right, your son will be grateful you saved him from her. If you're wrong, we'll still proceed carefully and protect you from retaliation. Either way, we document. We don't guess." I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. "What do I do?" I asked. "3 things," he said. 1, don't confront her yet. 2, preserve evidence, texts, samples, any written instructions. 3, contact Adult Protective Services today. Not tomorrow. Today. I hesitated. "A PS? Won't that blow things up?" "It starts a paper trail," he said. "And if there's a child involved who was threatened, you may also need a report with CPS. But let's start with APS. You can do this without creating a scene." Without creating a scene. That was my specialty. After I hung up, I looked at Nora. She was coloring a horse, very carefully, like she was trying to keep the world neat by keeping her crayon inside the lines. I sat beside her. "Hey," I said quietly. Nora didn't look up, but her shoulders tensed. "You were very brave last night," I said. Her hand paused. "She'll be mad," Nora whispered. "No," I said firmly. "She'll be caught. Those are different things." Nora's eyes flicked to mine. "What if she says I'm lying?" "She can say whatever she wants," I said. "But we're going to make sure people believe you." I could see the question trembling on her face. "Because you're going to tell them," I added gently. "Not in court, not in front of strangers yelling, but to someone whose whole job is listening to kids. Someone safe." Nora swallowed hard. Then she nodded. Day 2 was paperwork day. I called Adult Protective Services and made a report. The woman on the phone asked careful questions, like she'd heard this story 1,000 times, and that made my skin crawl. Because if she'd heard it 1,000 times, that meant Melissa wasn't some rare monster. She was a type. They gave me a case number. They told me not to confront Melissa. They told me to call 911 if I felt in immediate danger. They told me they would follow up. Then I called the local child advocacy center. I didn't even know those existed until that morning. The woman who answered was gentle but direct. "We can schedule a forensic interview," she said. "A trained interviewer will speak with Nora in a child-friendly setting. It's recorded. It can be used later if there's an investigation." Nora didn't flinch at the word recorded. She flinched at the word later. So I held her hand and said, "You're not alone." That afternoon, Melissa FaceTimed. Her skin was sun-kissed. Her hair was too perfect. She was wearing sunglasses inside like she was allergic to accountability. "Patricia," she sang. "How are my babies?" I angled the phone so she could see Nora sitting on the couch. Nora didn't look at the screen. Melissa's smile tightened slightly. "She's okay?" Melissa asked. "Great," I lied. "We're doing fine. I'm following your binder." Melissa beamed. "Perfect. And the tea?" "Oh, yes," I said, sweet as syrup. "Every night." Nora's fingers tightened around the cushion. I squeezed her shoulder gently. Melissa leaned closer to the camera. "Good. You know, At your age, sleep is so important. You can get confused when you don't rest. Ah, there it was. The seed. The little narrative she wanted planted. I smiled. You're right. It's been very calming. Melissa's eyes shone with satisfaction. After we hung up, I went to the bathroom and stared at myself in the mirror. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, from rage. But rage is fuel if you don't spill it too early. Day 3, Dr. Miller called. Patricia, she said, voice tight. Your labs are back. I sat down immediately. Nora was at the table eating apple slices. She watched me like she understood the gravity without needing the words. Dr. Miller didn't waste time. There's a sedative in your system, she said. Not a trace. Not maybe from a medication. It's there. And it's not something you should be taking. My mouth went numb. I only took one sip before Nora stopped me, I said. You've likely been exposed before, she replied. Or through food, or another drink. But Patricia, you were right to call. I closed my eyes. Because being right wasn't comforting. Being right meant Melissa had already been doing this. Dr. Miller continued, I'm filing a report. And I want you to stay with someone if possible. I can't, I said. Not yet. There was a pause. Then Dr. Miller's tone hardened. Then you lock your doors, she said. You tell me if you feel dizzy, and you do not. Do you hear me? Do not drink anything she prepares. I hear you, I said. After that call, I put the tea jar in the lockbox. Then I did something that felt surreal. I went online and ordered a small security camera set, one that could sit on a shelf in the kitchen and look like a normal gadget. 2-day shipping. Thank you, capitalism. Meanwhile, James Whitman sent me an email with a list of documents to gather. Deed to my home, any wills, any powers of attorney, bank statements. Because the truth is, if someone wants to exploit you, they don't start with a ski mask. They start with a family dinner. And a pen. That night, Nora and I ate mac and cheese because trauma deserves carbs. After dinner, she sat beside me on the couch, feet tucked under her, and whispered, She did it to Mrs. Keller. Who? I asked softly. Nora's voice was small. The lady at church. The one with the big hat. My heart sank. What happened? Nora picked at the seam of her pajama pants. Mom said she was helping her, Nora said. She'd bring groceries, make her tea, talk about paperwork. She said Mrs. Keller didn't know what she was signing. I swallowed. Did you see papers? Nora nodded. A folder. Mom said, if she signs the deed, we're done. The word deed came out of Nora's mouth like she'd memorized it. Like a child reciting something she didn't fully understand, but knew was dangerous. Where is Mrs. Keller now? I asked. Nora shrugged. Mom said she went to a facility. A facility. That's what people say when they don't want to say we took her freedom. I held Nora close. I wanted to promise her Melissa would never touch anyone again. But promises are cheap. Proof is expensive. So on day 4, Nora and I went to the Child Advocacy Center. It didn't look like a government building. It looked like a small house painted in cheerful colors. Inside, there were toys, soft chairs, a fish tank bubbling quietly. Nora clutched my hand like it was a lifeline. A woman introduced herself as an interviewer. She spoke to Nora like she mattered, like her words were valuable, not inconvenient. I didn't get to sit in the room. They explained that was important. No pressure, no coaching, no influence. So I waited in a separate area, staring at a wall poster that said, "You are safe here." I almost laughed at the irony, because safe wasn't a place. Safe was a battle. After an hour, Nora came out looking drained but lighter. like she'd been carrying a boulder and finally set it down. The interviewer came out afterward and said quietly, "Thank you for bringing her. We'll be forwarding this to the appropriate agencies." "Is she believed?" I asked. The woman's gaze was steady. "We take children seriously here." I blinked back tears. "Good," I whispered, "because I plan to take this all the way." Day 5, the cameras arrived. I installed one in the kitchen and one in the living room. Nora watched me with fascination. "It's like spy stuff," she whispered. "It is spy stuff," I said. "But the boring kind. The kind where the spy wears reading glasses and mutters about Wi-Fi." That afternoon, Melissa called again. She sounded cheerful. Too cheerful. "Patricia," she said, "I just wanted to check in. Are you feeling okay? You sounded tired last time." I leaned into the phone like I was confiding a secret. "Oh, I've been so sleepy," I said. "I guess your tea really works." Melissa hummed happily. "See? I told you, some people just need help regulating. At your age, the mind can slip." There it was again. Slip. Confusion. Her narrative was building. I kept my voice soft. "It's strange, though," I added. "Sometimes I can't remember if I took my vitamins." Melissa laughed lightly. "Oh, that happens." Nora sat across the room, eyes wide. I gave her a tiny nod. I put the call on speaker and set the phone under the kitchen camera. The camera caught everything. After the call, I texted James. "She's fishing for signs of confusion. I have recordings." He replied, "Good. Keep her talking. Also, APS is coordinating with law enforcement. Don't meet her alone when she returns." Day 6, APS called me back. A caseworker asked questions. Calm, methodical questions. Did Melissa have access to my finances? Did she have keys? Had she ever pressured me to sign anything? Did I have any cognitive diagnoses? Was Nora safe? I answered everything honestly. Then the caseworker said, "We're escalating this. A detective may contact you." My hands went cold again. Because escalation meant reality, it meant this wasn't just family drama. This was crime. That night, Nora couldn't sleep. She crawled into bed beside me, small and rigid, like she didn't know how to relax in peace. "She's coming tomorrow," she whispered. "Yes," I said. "What if she gets mad?" Nora asked. I stared at the ceiling and said quietly, "Then she should have picked a different hobby." Nora let out a tiny breath that almost sounded like a laugh. Then she whispered, "When she gets mad, she smiles first." That sentence broke something in me, because no child should know that kind of pattern. So I kissed Nora's forehead and said, "Tomorrow, you stay behind me. You don't have to be brave again. You already did the hardest part." Nora's voice was barely audible. "Talking?" "Yes," I whispered. "Talking." Day 7, the day Melissa came home. I woke up early, made pancakes, because I am, at my core, still a grandmother with a flair for domestic irony. I dressed like I was going to a normal family brunch, not like I was setting up an arrest. My phone buzzed. "Brian. Landing soon. See you in a few hours. Love you." I stared at the message, and for a brief moment, grief washed over me. Because Brian didn't know. He thought this was just a vacation and a grateful mom, and I was about to tear his life in half. But then I remembered Nora's words. "She smiles first." And I hardened. Late afternoon, their car pulled into the driveway. Nora stood by the window, shaking slightly. I put a hand on her shoulder. "Breathe," I said. "You're safe." The front door opened. Melissa entered first, sunglasses pushed up, skin glowing, energy loud. "Home sweet home," she declared. Brian followed with bags, looking tired but happy. "Mom," he said, grinning. How'd it go? It went, I said, smiling. Melissa swept toward me and hugged me dramatically. I patted her back like you pat a stranger's dog. Then she pulled away and immediately scanned my face. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Looking for what? Droopy eyelids? Slurred speech? Confusion? I gave her none of it. Oh! Melissa clapped her hands. Patricia, I almost forgot. While we were away, I spoke to someone about your situation. My situation. I found this great financial planner, she continued, too bright. He said we should get some paperwork in place, just in case you ever get overwhelmed. Brian frowned. Melissa, it's fine, she cut in sweetly. It's just responsible. Patricia, you know how it is. You don't want to burden Brian. Oh, the guilt angle. Classic. Melissa set a folder on the table like she was presenting dessert. There's a power of attorney, she said, and some forms related to the house. Nothing scary, just signatures. I looked at the folder, then I looked at her, and I smiled. Sure, I said. Let's talk. Melissa's shoulders relaxed. She thought she was winning. Brian looked uneasy. Mom, you don't have to sign anything if you don't want to. I placed my hand over his. I know, I said gently. But I do want to hear what Melissa has to say. Melissa beamed. Sit, she said, pulling out a chair for me like she was hosting a talk show. Nora hovered behind me, silent. Melissa glanced at her. Go play, Nora. Nora didn't move. Melissa's smile tightened. Nora? Nora's small hand slid into mine. I squeezed back. Okay, I said lightly. Walk me through it, Melissa. Melissa opened the folder and began speaking quickly, confidently, too confidently, like someone repeating a script. This is just so we can help you with bills if you get confused, she said. And this one is about the house deed, just a transfer to the family trust. It's normal. Everyone does it. Everyone does it. Sure. I leaned in. And what about the tea? I asked suddenly. Melissa blinked. What? The tea, I repeated, still smiling. The calming tea you insisted I drink every night. No exceptions. Brian looked between us. Tea? Melissa laughed. Oh my God, Patricia, are we really doing this? I tilted my head. Doing what? This paranoia, she said, her voice syrupy but sharp underneath. You always get dramatic. Brian's brow furrowed. Mom, what's going on? I didn't answer him yet. I looked at Nora. Nora's face was pale, but her eyes were steady. I nodded once. Nora took a breath, and then my granddaughter, my silent, nonverbal little girl, spoke again, right there in the kitchen, in front of her parents. She put medicine in it, Nora said clearly. She told me not to tell. She said if I did, I'd go back. The room snapped into silence. Brian's mouth fell open. Nora, you... Melissa went still. Not angry, not defensive, just frozen, like her brain had hit a wall. And then slowly, her face went completely white, because she realized something. Nora wasn't a quiet little prop anymore. She was a witness. Melissa's lips parted. Nora, honey, no, Nora said, voice shaking now but still loud enough. You said Grandma would get confused and sign. You said I had to keep my mouth shut. Brian turned to Melissa, disbelief twisting into horror. Melissa, what is she talking about? Melissa's eyes darted to me. Patricia, you coached her. I laughed. A short, humorless sound. Oh, Melissa, I said. You really think I'm organized enough to coach a child? I can barely coach myself into drinking enough water. Melissa's jaw tightened. This is insane. Is it? I asked. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. Because I have your texts, I said softly, telling me to drink the whole cup. Every night. No exceptions. Brian's face tightened. Melissa, why would you? And I have lab results, I continued, voice calm, showing a sedative in my system. Melissa's eyes widened. For the first time, she looked scared. Brian whispered, "What?" And, I added, "I have audio from my home security camera." Melissa's head snapped up. "You recorded me?" I tapped my screen, and the room filled with her own voice. "At your age, the mind can slip. You can get confused. That happens." Melissa lunged toward me instinctively, like she wanted to snatch the phone. But she stopped. Because there was a knock at the door. 3 sharp knocks. I didn't move. Brian looked confused. "Who is that?" Melissa's eyes flicked toward the door, then back to me, and I saw it. The calculation. The sudden realization that this was bigger than family. I walked to the door and opened it. A uniformed officer stood on my porch beside a woman holding a badge and a clipboard. "Ms. Morgan?" the woman asked. "Yes," I said. "I'm with Adult Protective Services," she said. "And this is Detective—" Melissa made a sound behind me. A thin, strangled inhale. The detective stepped forward. "Ma'am, we need to speak with you." Brian looked like he might faint. "Mom," he whispered. "What did you do?" I turned to him, eyes stinging. "I protected us," I said quietly. "I protected Nora." Melissa backed up a step. "This is ridiculous. You can't." The detective's voice was firm. "Melissa, we have a report. We have medical documentation, and we have reason to believe you attempted to exploit an elderly person financially and potentially administered a controlled substance without consent." Melissa's mouth opened and closed like a fish. She looked at Brian. She expected him to fix it, because Brian always fixed it. But Brian's face had changed. His softness was gone. He stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time and hating what he saw. "No," he said hoarsely. "No, you wouldn't." Melissa's eyes filled instantly, fake tears, perfectly timed. "Brian," she whispered. "She's lying. She's turning you against me." Brian's voice shook. Nora just spoke. For the first time. And the first thing she did was warn my mom. Melissa's tears faltered. Because she didn't have a script for that. The detective asked her to step outside. Melissa resisted at first, then tried to switch tactics, crying, bargaining, blaming me, blaming stress, blaming misunderstandings. But when the caseworker mentioned Nora's interview at the advocacy center, Melissa's face collapsed. Because she hadn't expected that. She'd expected silence. And now the silence was gone. Brian sank into a chair, head in his hands. Nora stood behind me, trembling. I wrapped an arm around her. "I'm sorry," Brian whispered, voice cracking. "Mom, I'm so sorry." I kissed the top of his head like he was 8 years old again. "I know," I said softly. "I know you didn't see it." Outside, Melissa's voice rose, sharp, desperate. Then it cut off, and the world went strangely quiet. That night, Nora and I slept at my house. Not Brian's, mine. Because I wasn't letting anyone move Nora around like luggage again. With James's help, I filed an emergency petition for temporary guardianship. APS backed the request. The detective took my statement. Dr. Miller's report went into the file. James Whitman worked like a machine. Within 48 hours, I had temporary emergency guardianship while the court sorted out the mess. Brian stayed in the picture, of course. He wasn't the villain. He was the guy who married one, and he had to live with that. Melissa was charged. And once the investigation opened, other names surfaced. Mrs. Keller and 2 others. Patterns. Paper trails. Quiet elderly people whose families had questions and no answers. Melissa had built a whole little side hustle out of smiling and helping, and now that hustle was over. Weeks later, Nora sat at my kitchen table sipping cocoa. Real cocoa. No calming anything. She looked up at me and said softly, "Grandma?" I froze again. Not from fear this time. From awe. "Yes, baby." "I'm glad you didn't drink it," she said. I walked over and hugged her. "Me too," I whispered. "I'm very glad." Nora's voice trembled. "Do you think I can talk more now?" I pulled back and looked at her face. "You can do whatever you want," I said. "And anyone who tries to take your voice away again is going to have to go through me." Nora blinked slowly, like she was trying to believe that. Then she nodded, and she smiled. A real smile. Not the kind you do right before you hurt someone. The kind you do when you finally feel safe. Do you know what the funny part is? Melissa thought the tea was the weapon, but the real weapon was Nora's voice. All I did was make sure she got to use it. And if you're wondering what happened to the tea, I kept the jar. Not because I'm sentimental, because I'm a grandmother. And when someone tries to poison you in your own kitchen, you don't forget. You document. You lock your doors. And you make sure they never get a second cup. So what do you think? Did I go too far or not far enough? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more. My brother-in-law installed tracking on my 16-year-old daughter's phone, and then he tried to box us in inside a mall parking garage, like we weren't people, just a family issue he had the right to solve with force. And the grossest part? Not that he did it. The grossest part was my husband calling me paranoid at first. Because if danger walks into your house with a smile, the words "we're family" and a pie for dessert, then it's not danger, right? It's just a rough patch. We lived in the suburbs outside Philadelphia, one of those neighborhoods with a starter home we bought for the future, a postage stamp yard, and a lawn that looked way too perfect for real life. The kind of street where neighbors smile the same smile and close their doors the same way. I'm Amanda. My husband is Rob. Our daughter is Emily. Emily used to be my talker. She'd walk into the kitchen and in 60 seconds flat, I'd get how Ms. Peterson mixed up names again, how the school hallway smelled like chlorine, how Jess, her best friend, was fighting with her boyfriend, how someone fell asleep face first in their notebook during history. All I had to do was nod, refill my coffee, and feel like I actually lived inside my kid's life. And then she went quiet. Not teenage quiet. Not "I'm mad at the universe" quiet. Different. Her silence got heavy, dense, the kind that sits in the air and makes your skin itch. One morning I saw her in the kitchen, hair thrown up in a messy tie, eyes not quite on me, dark circles so bad I wanted to blame the school system, society, and capitalism just for variety. She grabbed a piece of toast and stared at it like the toast had personally offended her. "Did you sleep okay?" I asked. "Yeah." Too fast. Too flat. She glanced at her phone and I saw her cheek twitch. 1 second, then gone. But I noticed that second. What's going on?" "Nothing, Mom. I'm late. PE first period." She snatched her backpack and slipped out the door. And I stood there with my half-drunk coffee and that awful feeling like somebody left a window open in your brain and a cold draft is crawling straight through your nerves. A couple days later, Ms. Karen Peterson called, the teacher who had Emily in homeroom. "I don't want to scare you," she said, "but Emily's changed. Her grades dropped fast, she's missing assignments, she sits by herself. I tried to talk to her and she shuts down. I just think you should know." Those calls are the worst because nobody says the scary part out loud. They say changed, shuts down, I think. And what you hear is, your kid is sinking and you haven't even noticed yet. I thanked her, hung up, and went looking for Rob. Rob came home exhausted, like always. He's a construction supervisor, hard hat, concrete, schedules, and a never-ending parade of the timeline moved. Rob, I said, the school called. Emily's having problems. He didn't even look up from his phone. Amanda, she's a teenager. That's normal. Normal is locking herself in her room. Normal is flinching at notifications. You're spiraling. She just wants space. Stop hovering. He said it like teenagers were an IKEA manual. Step 1, don't touch it. Step 2, wait. Step 3, it'll fix itself. I'm not hovering, I snapped. I can feel something's wrong. You can feel everything, he cut in. You're sensitive. He said sensitive like it was a diagnosis that let him opt out of reality. Because if the problem is me, he doesn't have to look the truth in the face. And right around then, Tyler started showing up at our house. Rob's younger brother, freshly divorced. He's having a hard time. He needs support. He's family. Tyler was the kind of man who could look wounded on command, just wounded enough to get sympathy. Sad eyes, soft voice, tragic story, and always, always, too much presence. At first he stopped by for coffee, then he stayed for dinner. Then he developed this cute little habit of showing up without warning. One day I walked into the kitchen and saw an open bottle of bourbon on the table. My bourbon, the one I kept for a special occasion, because sometimes grown adults want to pretend they're in control of their lives. Oh, hey, Amanda, Tyler smiled. Rob said you wouldn't mind. Of course. I'm a woman. I'm automatically fine with things I wasn't asked about. Rob came in behind him, cheerful. Tyler needs a distraction, he said. We're not monsters. There it was. If you object, you're a monster. Emily came downstairs for dinner, saw Tyler, and froze in the doorway. Her whole body went tight, tight enough that even I could see it. Hi, she said quietly. Hey, sweetheart, Tyler replied, way too warmly. How's school? Emily didn't answer. She sat, picked up her fork, like she was giving herself an order. Just survive this evening. Put your phone away, Rob said. That's rude. Emily did it, and her face got even whiter. I watched her and thought, this isn't about manners. This is about safety. And Rob was the guy asking you to close a window while the house is on fire. That night, I went upstairs to check on Emily. I tried the doorknob. Locked. I knocked. Em? Everything okay? A pause. Yeah. Night, Mom. I stood in the hallway trying to talk myself into teenage phase. But a mother's instinct is not hygienic. You can't switch it off. And the thought that came next made me want to bleach my brain. Emily isn't locking the door because of me. Emily is locking the door because of someone in this house. Tyler became part of our daily life so fast it was like he had a key. And honestly, I wouldn't have been shocked if he did. He brought groceries on his way. He took out the trash. He talked about how Sarah, his ex, ruined his life. And every story ended the exact same way, like a chorus in a bad song. You're my only family. Rob melted every time. Because Rob was raised on this idea that a man keeps the family together. And apparently, in his head, family included a grown man with no concept of boundaries. One day, Tyler came by in the middle of the day when Rob was out on site. I was working from home. My spreadsheet was on fire, and I was not emotionally prepared for surprise therapy hour. Tyler walked into the kitchen like he lived there, poured himself water and looked around like he was checking inventory. "Hey," he said finally. "Rob told me Emily's laptop's lagging. Let me take a look. I know my stuff." Something in me clenched. "No, if it's acting up, we'll take it to a shop." He smiled. "That's money down the drain. I'm not some stranger. I'll do it for free. Family." And that's where the American horror movie starts, the one they turn into a streaming documentary. Because family is the most dangerous currency on earth. You pay with your safety and you never get change back. I called Rob, hoping he'd say no. Rob said, "Sure, let him look. He knows tech." So I handed Tyler Emily's laptop. Because sometimes the scariest person in the family isn't the one who shows up. It's the one who opens the door and says, "It's fine." After that, Emily got quieter. And every time her phone buzzed, her fingers twitched. I tried to catch a moment when Tyler wasn't hovering. He had this sick, perfect timing. He appeared exactly when I needed to talk to my kid. One morning I saw Emily on the stairs. She was gripping her phone like it might bite. "Emily, look at me." She lifted her eyes, and I saw something that breaks adults. Contained fear. "Mom, I'm fine," she said automatically. "No, you're not. You're locking your door. You're not eating. You flinch at messages. I'm not going to pretend this is a phase. Tell me what's happening." She inhaled. Her lips trembled. And then the front door opened. "Good morning," Tyler called, bright and cheerful. "Oh, you're both home. Perfect." Emily took a step back like someone shoved her. I'm going upstairs," she whispered, and she vanished. Tyler watched her go, then turned to me. "Tough age," he said. "You just need patience." He said it like I was a clueless mom, and he was the wise expert on other people's kids. I snapped. "Tyler, why are you here all the time? Without calling, without warning?" For 1 second, his face went cold. Then the smile snapped back into place. "Amanda, do you really think I'm in the way? I'm just trying to help. Rob's stressed. Emily's stressed. I can tell. I want things to be calm for you guys." Calm. He said that word like calm was something he would grant us if we behaved. Later, I tried Rob again. "Rob, your brother is acting weird. Emily is scared of him." Rob sighed like I'd suggested we adopt a llama. "Amanda, Emily just hates when adults interfere. Tyler's trying to connect. He's a good guy. A good guy doesn't show up uninvited and look at our daughter like she owes him something." Rob frowned. "You're reaching. He's my brother. He's not okay right now." "And what about Emily, Rob? Is she okay?" He went quiet, and I realized it was easier for him to pity a grown man than admit something terrifying was happening to his daughter, because admitting it meant acting. Acting meant conflict. Conflict meant facing the fact that family isn't always a holy word. One evening, I heard Emily's voice through her door, quiet, shaky. She was on the phone. "Jess, I can't. She whispered. "I'm scared. No, I can't tell my dad. He won't believe me. He'll say I'm being dramatic." My throat tightened. I knocked. "Emily?" Silence. "Em, open up. It's me." The lock clicked. The door cracked open. Emily stood there, phone hidden behind her back, eyes red. "Mom, please, don't make me talk," she whispered. I could have done the right thing, gentle, calm, no pressure. But rage rose up in me. "I'm not making you," I said. "I'm asking, because I'm your mom, and I'm watching you disappear right in front of me." She trembled. "I don't want Dad to hate you because of me." That line hit like a fist to the ribs. Because it was possible. Because it had already existed in our house. just wearing different words. I sat down beside her and took her hand. Emily, if someone is hurting you, it's not because of you. It's because of them. And Dad, he can be wrong, but he has to hear the truth. She opened her mouth to say more, and then Tyler's voice floated up from downstairs. Emily, come down here. I brought your favorite snacks. Emily flinched, and I knew it. This wasn't a rough patch. We had a predator in our home. We'd been promising to shop for her homecoming dress forever. We postponed twice. Every time Emily said, "It's fine, later." But I could tell she was clinging to that day like a tiny breath of normal. Saturday morning, I said, "Today, just you and me." Emily nodded too fast, like she was afraid I'd change my mind. We picked a big mall, the kind where you can buy everything in one trip and where crowds make you feel invisible. I told myself, with people around, she'll feel safer. Naive of me. There was no parking outside, so I drove into the garage. A concrete maze where every footstep echoes and the lighting makes everybody look gray. Emily sat with her phone in her hands, eyes darting over mirrors and lanes. "You sure you want this place?" I asked. "Yeah," she said. "It's okay." Her okay had become code for I'm holding it together with duct tape. Inside, under bright lights and noise, she actually loosened up. We even smiled. We ate fries in the food court, and for the first time in weeks, she told me something about school, short but real. I almost believed we were okay. Almost. Then she froze. "Mom." Her voice went small. "I thought I saw..." I followed her gaze. A reflection in glass. A male figure. I turned fast. People, bags, noise. No one familiar. It was nothing," I said, way too confidently. "He's at home." I said it like confidence could replace safety. Mistake number 1,000. We went into her favorite store. Music pretending life is easy. Employees smiling like their paychecks depend on your happiness. Maybe they did. Emily chose a navy dress. Beautiful. Simple. The kind of dress that says, "I'm growing up, but I'm not auditioning for anyone's approval." "I'm going to try it on," she said, and disappeared behind the curtain. I stood by the rack, flipping hangers, when the curtain snapped open. Emily stepped out pale, phone trembling in her hand. "Mom?" I looked at the screen. A message from Tyler. "Navy blue looks amazing on you. Very elegant." Something inside me clicked off. The lights went out. Cold clarity moved in. "We're leaving," I said. "But the dress. We'll buy it. Now. Go." I barely remember paying. I just remember gripping her hand and pulling her through the crowd like the crowd might turn into water and drown us. Elevator down, parking level, concrete air. And then Emily said, "Mom, turn your phone off. Right now. Mine too." "What?" "Please, turn it off. He'll find us." I shut mine down. Emily killed hers too. Hands shaking, screen going black. Quiet for 1 second, like we'd slammed a door on something. It was probably too late, though. If he already had our last ping, the damage was done. We reached the car, and Emily finally spoke. Fast, whispering, like the walls were listening. "He put something on my laptop," she said. "And then he had me install it on my phone, too. Parental controls like protection from bad websites. He said Dad knew. And then he started messaging me from different accounts. On Instagram, sometimes just hi, sometimes threats. He sent photos outside my school, photos of our house. He wrote that he always knows where I am, and if I tell anyone, nobody will believe me, especially Dad." Rage rose so hard I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. Not there. Not now. Emily, I said quietly, you didn't do anything wrong. Do you understand me? She nodded, tears glassy in her eyes. And that's when I saw Tyler. He stood near a concrete pillar, maybe 100 feet away, phone in his hand, waving it slightly, like he was catching a signal. Then he lifted his head and looked straight at us. Found us. He walked toward the car slowly, calmly, confident, like a man who's always been given what he wants. Mom, Emily whispered. Please. I started the engine. The sound bounced off the concrete. Tyler sped up. I locked the doors. He was right there. He knocked on the window. His smile was stretched thin and mean. Open up. Let's talk. I threw the car into reverse. He stepped in front of the car and spread his arms like it was some dramatic "stop, you misunderstood" scene. Only in our movie there was no soundtrack, just concrete. And fear. Amanda, he yelled. Don't do this. We're family. Family? Sure. Family. The universal hall pass to ignore boundaries. I cut the wheel and shot into the next lane. Tires squealed. He ran beside the car and slapped the door. Emily screamed. I didn't even catch the words, just sound. In the mirror, I saw him sprinting for his car. He followed. At the exit, he tried to cut me off. Too close, too aggressive. I burst onto the street, and for the first time all day, I was grateful for chaos. Chaos makes it harder for predators. He still stayed on us. At one intersection, he tried to surge ahead and stop sideways. I jerked onto another road, one with people and cameras. I pulled into the parking lot of a roadside diner. Bright lights, big windows, strangers everywhere. Emily was crying with her hand over her mouth like she was afraid someone would hear. I turned my phone back on. Notifications hit like an avalanche. Missed calls from Rob, messages from unknown accounts, and one new text from Tyler, bold now. Don't do anything stupid. I just want to talk. I dialed 911. I kept my voice calm because panic doesn't help, and dispatch needs facts. Stalking, threats, a vehicle chase, attempted blocking, a minor involved, suspected digital tracking. Then I called Rob. Where are you? He demanded immediately. Tyler called. He said you two had a fight. I inhaled. Rob, your brother is stalking Emily. He's tracking her. He installed something. He chased us. Tried to box us in. I called the police. A pause. Heavy. Sticky. Amanda, maybe you misunderstood, Rob said. Tyler, he's just worried. I started shaking. Rob, do you hear yourself? Worried is crying on a couch. Worried is not texting "Navy looks great on you" while standing outside the fitting room. Silence. Emily will tell you everything, I said. If you give her a chance and don't jump to defending family. I heard him swallow. I'm coming, he said. Text me the address. When Rob arrived, he looked into the car and saw Emily's face, and I watched his world crack. He opened the passenger door, dropped to a crouch, and hugged his daughter. I'm sorry, Em, he whispered. I'm sorry. I was an idiot. Sometimes, I'm sorry sounds like a person waking up. I just wish it didn't take a nightmare. The patrol car showed up fast. Tyler, of course, was gone. Men like that disappear like shadows. They don't want reality. They want control. The officer took a basic report and told us to come to the precinct to file a formal statement. It wasn't the moment where the system rushes in to save you. It was the moment where the system says, we need paperwork. The next day, we sat on plastic chairs under a buzzing AC vent. Emily looked gray with exhaustion. Rob was tight as wire. I felt like I was being asked to prove I was drowning before anyone would throw a rope. At first, the detective listened with that family drama face. Any physical harm? He asked. No, I said. But there are threats. Tracking. A vehicle chase. Messages. He nodded like it wasn't ideal. And then Emily pulled out her phone, opened the thread, showed him. The dress message. Screenshots. Photos outside her school. Photos of our house. Lines that made my fingers go cold. I know where you are. And don't get smart. The detective's face changed. The boredom left. The focus arrived. Rob finally said what he should have said weeks earlier. He's my brother, Rob said. And, yeah, he was at our house a lot. I let him. I thought he just needed support. But this isn't normal. He crossed a line. Sometimes, for the system to take it seriously, someone with authority has to confirm it's real. And in families, authority often means the man. It made me angry, but I used it. The detective gave us instructions. Save everything, don't delete, make copies, turn on two-factor authentication, secure accounts, don't respond to Tyler if he reaches out. He spoke like someone who's seen what "let's just talk" turns into. They called Tyler in for an interview. He denied everything, said I was hysterical, said Emily was manipulating, said he was just trying to help. And the nastiest part? He said it in the same soft tone he used when he talked about being our only family. They let him go. For now. Those days were the worst. Because he knew we'd gone to the police. And people like him hate it when their toys find a voice. We changed the locks. Rob installed cameras by the front door. I drove Emily to school and picked her up like we lived in a war zone instead of a cul-de-sac with holiday wreaths and live, laugh, love signs. Emily jumped at every notification, even on a brand new phone. Because fear doesn't update just because you upgraded the hardware. A few days later, the detective called. "We got a search warrant," he said, and I exhaled like I'd been holding my breath since the moment Emily first went quiet. When they pulled Tyler's devices, everything got worse. And, at the same time, everything finally made sense to the system. Worse, because there was so much. Better, because now it wasn't a worried mom and a family misunderstanding. It was evidence. They found the tracking software. They found hundreds of photos. They found a file. His little journal. Roots. My work hours. Emily's schedule, and the floor plan of our house pulled from the builder's website, with notes, actual notes, about who slept where. I sat at my kitchen table staring at that list and realized, if we'd waited another month... No, I'm not even finishing that thought. That's when Tyler got arrested for real. The court issued an emergency no-contact order, not "please don't," not "let's be civil," a real, enforceable, "stay away and shut up." No, I was just driving by. No, I just wanted to talk. No, but we're family. Rob looked like someone had smashed his entire identity and handed it back in pieces. He met with attorneys, answered questions, signed paperwork, and every night he came home quieter, older, more hollow. One night he sat on the edge of our bed and said, "I let him in. I actually let him in." And I didn't rush to comfort him. Not because I'm cruel, because sometimes a person needs to feel the weight of what they did so they never do it again. A week later, I booked family therapy with Dr. Julia Bennett. Rob tried to resist. "We can handle this ourselves." "We already handled it ourselves," I told him. "All the way to tracking and a car chase. Now we handle it like adults." The first session was awful. I talked about fear and rage. Emily stared at the carpet like the carpet was safer than any adult in the room, and then Rob said, staring at his hands, "I called Amanda paranoid, and she saw it. She saw it early. I just wanted it to be simple. I wanted it to be a family issue that blows over. Because if I admit my brother is dangerous, that means I've been wrong for a long time." Dr. Bennett's voice was calm, not gentle. calm like a scalpel. "Being wrong isn't the danger," she said. "Staying wrong after you've seen the damage. That's the danger." Emily finally lifted her eyes. "I stayed quiet," she said softly, "because I thought Dad would believe Tyler. Dad always believed Tyler." Rob covered his face with his hands. "And that wasn't the ending. That was the beginning. Spring in the suburbs smells like wet dirt and someone else's barbecue." We were driving, and Emily sat beside me, quiet, but not the scary kind of quiet. This was rebuilding. "How was your session?" I asked. "Okay," she said, and she smiled. "I'm learning how to say no without feeling guilty. Apparently it's a skill, not a personality trait." We all changed. The district attorney's office didn't do the whole primetime courtroom drama with a jury. The case moved through an agreement that mattered more than a spectacle. Tyler got a court-ordered psychiatric evaluation, mandatory treatment, strict supervision, and the no-contact order stayed in place. No closeness, no messages, no, "I miss you," no, "Let's just talk." He moved to another city with distant relatives, and honestly, that distance was better than any version of justice I'd imagined. Rob sometimes texts from the grocery store. "Should I buy chicken I'll burn, or should I just grab charcoal and save time?" Emily laughs, and her laugh is the only victory I care about. We pulled up to that same mall, and I noticed my heart wasn't pounding. It was just beating, like it's supposed to. "Today, no garage," I said. "Obviously," Emily replied. "I don't have to prove I'm brave by walking into traps." We got out, and she took my hand first. "Mom," she said quietly, "thank you for believing me. Right away. Well, almost right away. But you believed me." I swallowed. "I should have done it sooner," I admitted. "I should have ripped him out of our house the day I saw your face change around him." "You did rip him out," Emily said. "That's what matters." We walked inside. Bright lights, noise, normal life. And I kept thinking about the scariest part of all of this. Not the chase, not the tracking. The fact that my child stayed silent for months because she was sure her own father would say, "We're family first." And only after that, "I believe you." Now, the order is different. And that is the only thing in this story I'll call actual salvation. Thanks for spending your time with me. If you want more stories like this, hit subscribe and give this video a like. And don't be shy, leave a comment. Your support means a lot. Take care, and I'll catch you in the next one.